G'day and welcome to the Grow a Small Business Podcast. I'm your host, Troy Truen. Each week, we speak with an owner who has grown a business with 5 to 30 team members to something bigger. Diving into their numbers and unearthing the pain they've experienced, we explore what they did to overcome each barrier and what they would do differently from day one. Let's get into it. We'll have all the show notes and any resources mentioned in the cast on our website. In 2004, aged 20, quit as a primary school teacher and started a tutoring business to primary school kids with a shop selling books and toys. Grew that to 3 stores in 7 years and started franchising, becoming Australia's youngest female franchisor at age 27. Got up to 35 franchisees before selling out in 2016 with a 2-year earnout. Chucked a big Jerry Maguire tantrum at 19 months, which cost her a lot financially on exit. She then started 6 other businesses, travelled the family for a year, visiting 28 countries, starting with a much-needed 90-day digital detox to reconnect with the kids. Now has a business with 4 FTEs selling online courses, masterminds and building online course websites, which took 16 months to reach $1 million in sales and 65% net profit, compared with 5 to 8% when franchising. Funded the first business with credit cards for a while, got a $50,000 loan at 8% from the parents as the banks wouldn't lend. Then after turning down investment, funded the growth by moving the family out of their home to rent a dingy flat with 2 kids under 3 living on $200 a week. Felt she had succeeded when they opened their first store, then first franchise. Hardest thing about growing a small business is believing in yourself. What she would tell herself on day one of starting out is, you're going to be okay. Listen to episode 5. Tim and Beck launched their online business in Tasmania, grew at 700% per annum, and in less than 3 years, sold out for $10 million. Starting this week, we'll add another podcast on Thursday mornings at 7 a.m. Check it out. Welcome, everyone. Today I'm interviewing Tina Tower from Tina Tower. Thanks for your time today, Tina. That's a lot of T's.
It is. I love alliteration. My last business was called Begin Bright. So yeah, everything's alliterated in my life.
Yep, great. And how we know each other, this one's an easy one. Again, Peter from our podcast editor reached out and asked you to come on the cast.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Love it.
Well, tell our audience a bit about your business, what it does, where it's located, how it makes money.
Yeah, so I've had an interesting business journey. So I've done a few different iterations. I've been in business since I was 20 and started with a very traditional business model of having a tutoring center and a retail toy store, and then scaled that and grew it into a franchise company. So we had 35 locations throughout the country, sold that in 2016, and then went into online business. So now I run online courses, masterminds, and we have a whole service-based business building online course websites for people as well.
Great, fantastic. Yeah, we've just launched an online course 3 or 4 months ago, the Distillers Institute. We've got 100 students in that, and we've been really surprised with the uptake. Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, 'tis the season for online courses.
Exactly, and then COVID, we're about to launch, and then COVID came along, and I think that's helped a little, but the underlying demand, I think, was already there for people that want to start a distillery. So, yeah, I'm really enjoying it. I'm launching some more courses later this year for my Grow a Small Business business.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, nice. Well done.
Maybe just touch a bit on the franchise. That's phenomenal growth to 35. So what year did you start that?
So the business was started in 2004 and I started the first franchise in 2011. So I was going myself for a bit. And then between 2011 and 2016, that 5-year period before sale, we went from 0 to 35.
Geez, wow. So I'd love to talk a little bit about the franchise journey, because I haven't had anyone on about franchises yet. But those first 7 years before you decided to go the franchising route, how many stores did you build up to yourself?
So I had 3 myself and then started licensing. So 2 years before franchising, 2009, I licensed the program, and then the demand was there to switch from a license to a franchise.
Got it. And so what was the idea? What sparked the idea to move to a franchise model?
Mainly, I was exhausted and couldn't cut myself any further in half.
Yeah.
What I didn't know at the time is that franchising is even more exhausting, but we can get into that part.
Yep.
But so I had 3 locations myself, and basically thought I could not replicate what I was doing to the same level of care. So I wanted to find a way to scale without having to micromanage everything myself. So I had 15 staff in my one location, and just dealing with that myself was hard enough. And I did everything quite early. I got married at 21 and I had one baby at 24 and another at 25 at the same time as I started scaling business. So obviously,
well, you sound like a masochist. That's a lot on your plate.
It was, but I say now, like even yesterday, I did this massive 14-hour day, which I never do anymore. I'm very good with having good lifestyle and balance and all of that sort of thing. But I woke up and I was hammered and I'm going, I used to be able to churn them out like a little Energizer bunny. And, the 20s should be used for just advancement because you've got all the energy in the world. If I had babies now, I mean, the average age for babies for women now is like 33.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so much harder.
I bet.
Anyway, but yeah, back then it was kind of like my babies just came everywhere with me. I had cots set up in the backs of storerooms, and they just did it. But that's why I started licensing. Was I wanted to find a way to keep working and not to have bricks and mortar locations myself. And then we did the licensing. A whole lot of people wanted the business back end, so we ran primary tutoring centres. So I'd written curriculum. I'm a primary teacher by trade. So we did the curriculum, but they wanted all of the business stuff. So that's why we transferred to a franchise.
Yep. So do you have any other key numbers you can share to illustrate the growth? Obviously, the number of franchisees up to 35 is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Did you peak at about 15 FTE staff in your own 3 stores?
Yeah, so across the brand, each of the locations generally had between 4 and 10 staff. So, I had, in the end, with 35 franchises, we had 5 staff, like in head office, kind of running that we had our own centres and more staff in there as well. But it's amazing how big a business you can build on few staff when I'm massive on systems and automations. So yeah, we used a lot of that, and that's how a lot of my business now runs, is hugely systemized and automated.
Yeah, great. I do want to close out on what you're up to now. Once we've finished talking a little bit about the franchise. So you 5 in the head office running the franchise side of the business, and you had your 3 stores. Was it 15 across those 3 stores?
15 was in my flagship one. So that's when we had the retail store attached to it as well. So we had a few more staff there. Yeah.
So all up, including the 5 in franchise head office, how many FTE?
The most employed at one time I had was probably around 25.
Great. Yeah. And when you started out that first store, was that just yourself? I assume you would have had to have another person or so on.
Nope, that was just me.
Wonder Woman.
Me. I was working full-time at uni and started tutoring in the afternoon, and then I'd open the store when I wasn't at uni. And
Oh, Tina, stop. You're making me feel lazy now.
Oh, you know what? My old self makes me feel lazy now. I don't know how I did it. Yeah.
That's phenomenal. That is great. Well done on that growth and success. So
yeah. I mean, when I started, because obviously, when a small business starts, you're not making any money either. So I used to do like the 10 p.m. till 3 a.m. shift, Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights at the pub, and it's just crazy. But that's youth.
That is youth. It's that youthful exuberance and naivety.
Yeah, and drive and ambition. I mean, I've always had it in spades. So now I'm a little smarter about how I work, rather than just going like a bull at a gate in 50 million directions. Yeah,
I changed my approach from pure brute force to working smarter rather than harder.
Completely.
100-hour weeks was regular for me early on when we started 2 tech companies late 99, so 2 internet companies actually,
You do what you've got to do, but it's also a little ridiculous.
It is, in hindsight. It is. So that's not the advice either of us, I think, would give people these days to pursue it.
Yeah.
Any other key numbers you can share, like group top line growth, even percentages or?
Yeah, well, I mean, so the thing with a franchise is, and this is what I've found interesting in changing into different businesses, is I would used to meet people as a franchisor. So I was 27 when I started franchising. So I was Australia's youngest ever female franchisor, and I'd go out and people would learn what I do, and you'd say, I've got 20 locations and 120 staff and all of the different things going, and people would be like, wow, that is impressive. But I wasn't making any money. it's very expensive and laborious to run a franchise system. There's a crazy amount of figures. And then when I went into online business, so our profit margin used to sit somewhere between 5 and 8% was we were doing all right. We were doing pretty well with that.
Yeah.
Online business, we sit at around 60 to 65%.
Yeah.
But people look at it and they go, oh, you've got a little at-home business going on. It doesn't have anywhere near like the prestige of, wow, that's impressive. But from a financial point of view, my God.
Making shitloads more money, less stress, less work.
Yeah. So numbers were a really interesting thing for me in the franchise journey because a lot of it went, so like, for example, I made more profit when I had 22 locations than when I had 30 locations, which blew my mind at the time because I didn't understand the concept in going, hang on, if I just add more, I'm going to make more money, right? But then we went over the precipice where we had to then hire more staff and needed more infrastructure and all of that sort of thing. So there was I had to work out how to grow in fits and bursts to go, okay, when we add 5 locations, we're going to need these extra people. So I had to do everything in kind of chunks.
Yep. Got it.
Yeah.
And so maybe before we close out, there's 2 questions I've got here on the franchising before we close out and start talking about your new chapter now. What was did you instigate the exit or were you approached for the buyout?
Yeah, so we were approached early in the piece, and I had conversations with other people going like from 3 years in. But then when it came time to do it, I did it properly. I listed with a broker. I looked at our other horizons, and we ended up selling to an international education company, which was a good idea and a good deal for that. In the end, it just wasn't. When I started franchising, I went to a guy who I knew ran an awesome franchise and sat down with him and said, this is what I want to do. What do you think? And he like stood up at the desk and he was like, Tina, don't do it. You don't have the constitution for this. You're not strong enough for this. And me, of course, was like, oh, fuck that. I'll show you. And did it.
That's the motivation you needed.
It turns out he was so right.
Yeah.
Because, you've probably picked up from me so far. I'm quite an enthusiastic, happy, bubbly, creative kind of a person. And franchising's the opposite. You have to be really autocratic. It's all about compliance and systems and consistency. Yes. And it did my head in the end. And the whole relationship side of it was a real struggle. So always like the kind of balance of franchises across the board is usually they say the 80-20 rule. You've got 80% happy, 20% unhappy. That 20%, I mean, I can't handle anyone unhappy with me ever for anything.
There's so much noise in that 20% though.
So much noise and time and energy. And I woke up one day, actually it was when I took a break and we went away for 3 weeks as a family in 2015. And I had a couple of abusive emails from people and ended up in tears. And I'm like, oh my God, like why? I've always been into life design of all the things I could be doing with my life. Why am I doing this? This is not what I want. And so we came back and then got it ready and sold. That
fellow franchisor that gave you that advice, that wasn't Chris Malcolm from Clark Rubber.
No.
You know Chris?
No, I don't.
He's in the Australian Hall of Fame, Franchise Hall of Fame. Yeah, he was one of my directors when I was at Lark. Yeah, lovely fellow. Yeah. He reinstated the Clark Rubber brand. Yeah. I think it was defunct in the 80s, bought it from whoever owned it at the time and turned it into a franchise model. So I'm going to reach out to Chris soon and get him on the cast.
Yeah, that'd be great. No, mine was Andrew Simmons, who runs Vision Personal Training, and he started it from scratch and it's still going and thriving. He's been going franchising probably close to 20 years now, I reckon.
Yep.
Yeah.
I remember Chris talking, because I did ask Chris a lot over the years at Lark about Clark Rubber franchise, how it went, etc. And he did say that it can be quite noisy. There are some franchisees that obviously you vet them and put them through a due diligence, but some still make it through that shouldn't be there, or they've just, something happens bad in their life. There can be a fair bit of noise still.
Yeah. It's a hard game to play.
Yeah. Well, before we continue on with the questions, just fill us in on, after you sold out, what did you do and what are you doing now? You mentioned before we started recording, you took a year off with the family.
So I had a bit of an identity crisis, really. So I'd been going at that business for 13 years. So I was 20 when I started. So my whole kind of, I was the tutoring lady. Like that's who I was. That's everything I had. And it was really weird so I sold under an earnout. So I got a percentage of the purchase price up front and then the rest of it tied to KPIs throughout the time. I lost a lot because I didn't last the distance. I was on a 2-year earnout and I ended up chucking a big Jerry Maguire style tantrum at 19 months and left in a blaze of glory, which I actually, from a financial point of view, it wasn't the best decision, but it was the best decision I could have ever made. And I haven't regretted it for a second. So we did that. And then it was weird on the day that I stopped in the earnout, I had to hand in my phone, my computer, my emails, like everything. And it was just, I was so used to running on adrenaline. As we all do when we run small businesses, you get really caught up in it. And it was really weird to wake up the next day and literally no one needed me or wanted me for it.
What a feeling.
And I was, it was exhilarating and terrifying.
Yes. That would have been a hard to let go or reestablish a kind of new identity and routine and
completely. I mean, I went, so in that following few months, because I really wanted to figure out, I could have retired from a financial point of view, but I was 33 years old. So you go one, what are you going to do? And two, I love business. So I knew I wanted to do something, but I didn't know kind of what I wanted to be when I grew up. So I started 6 different businesses doing different things. I started a jewelry line. The craziest one was I read a book series to my kids that I really loved that I thought would make a great film. So I bought the film rights to it and went to Hollywood to try and make it a feature film.
Wow. Okay.
Which did not work, but I did have some really cool meetings and ended up in a premiere with Charlize Theron in LA going, this is hilarious that I'm here. So I've done some fun things. And then accidentally fell into online courses. So because of the business that I built, I had a lot of people asking me for business coaching and found that, they were paying, business coaching is expensive. You're paying a lot of money for people's time. But I was repeating the same things again and again. So I'm like, all that repeatable stuff, I'm going to put it into a course and then people can just buy it and we can run with that.
That's exactly why I'm launching these courses later in the year. I've been mentoring for probably 15 years and I get asked a lot of the same things. So to save everyone's time and make it more affordable. Yeah, that's what I'm looking at doing.
Yeah, great idea. Yeah, and people will love it. So there's a lot of value that you can give through that. And so we started that and then it had always been on our dream list to travel. We've always, my husband and I are big travelers. We take the kids away for a month every 6 months through their life. And then we thought, you know what, let's do it big. We wanted to leave where we were living. And so we thought instead of just moving, let's take a gap year. So we called it our family gap year. And we sold our house and our cars and all of our stuff and got on a plane and ran away from the world.
Went to 28 countries in a year. That's wonderful.
Yeah. And it was incredible. I mean, we did a 90-day digital detox. So we had no phones, no social media, no anything, which usually I'm very prevalent on social media. So it was just beautiful to just reconnect with the kids and just know them so well and explore. And I go it's a shame I think I've peaked in life. I don't know how anything could ever be that wonderful ever again.
Yeah, great.
So it was good. Yeah.
And how did you go in that year fighting the urge or compulsion to wanting to be working?
I think we moved so much that I didn't. So my husband is much cruisier than I am as a human. And he wanted to stay in one place for 3 months and really feel the culture and do that. I would have gone nuts and then I would have started something.
Or you would have started 17 businesses in those 3 months in that town.
Completely. Yeah. Easter long weekend is always a running joke in our family because you have 4 days off that I always start a new business in Easter long weekend.
Right. Great.
Yeah. My mind should never be left alone to wander.
Got it.
That was really good. We moved around a lot, and then when we came back, we decided to really dig into this online course thing, and it's just it took 16 months to hit $1 million. It's an amazing business model.
That's wonderful. That's great.
Yeah.
And what area is there? An area you focus on specifically? Is it franchising or just business?
No, nothing to do with franchising. If I never talk about franchising again for the rest of my life, it won't be too soon. But no, we're very niche. So I work work with female course creators that have previous business expertise that they're wrapping up.
Yep.
So they've had like service-based businesses and then package their expertise into online courses, podcasting, content marketing, book publishing, speaking, and run courses through Kajabi.
Right. Great.
So super niche.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's phenomenal. $1 million, you say, in 16 months, in your first 16 months. That's wonderful. Well done.
Yeah. And you look at that and go, to me, online programs have been, and it's why I'm so passionate about helping other women that run service-based business in doing it, is what it took to make $1 million through franchising. It's just like
pales into insignificance.
It's been a revelation to me. I used to hear people talk about it and I always had the kind of mental notion of, while they sleep, I work, and I will work harder and longer than anyone else to get what I deserve, kind of thing. I was an idiot thinking that. I used to always hear people talking about, work less and do that. And I'd just go, bullshit. Bullshit, you big liars.
Yes.
No, they were not lying.
No, they're right. Work smarter, not harder. So true, that phrase. And so when did you launch, what month and year did you launch the first course?
So technically April 2018 was when we launched, and then we got back when did we get back? April last year, 2020. 2019 from our trip. And that is when we kind of really
got into it.
Did it properly.
So while you're away, were the courses there for people still to sign up? Were you still earning money from the courses?
Yeah, so the courses were there, but I did no marketing, no promotion. So it was really just if someone emailed me and said, hey, can you help me with this question? And I'd say, jump in here and you can get it. Yeah.
Right. And how big's your team now?
Now we have 4. So itty bitty and bloody beautiful.
Great.
Yeah, it's great. It's really great. The hard part now is going, so we're pretty tapped out at the moment. And one of the things I said when we started this new business was I never wanted a big team again. And I love kind of 4 to 6. 4 to 6 people is a really good kind of family feel, and everyone knows each other, and it's really cohesive, and you don't have like silos breaking off within the team kind of thing. So I vowed to never like run the biggest, most successful business I could with that. And we're at that now and trying to figure out, do we go bigger again, or can I? So my husband keeps telling me I'm incapable of keeping small, but I'm trying.
I think I've gone through this similar mindset change. Our business in London, I moved over there to buy into a small IT support company. We had 2 senior engineers, my 2 business partners. We asked one to leave after 8 months because he had ADHD and couldn't fill out a timesheet. We're about to pile the juniors on. It wasn't a good example. So we grew that to about 20 people. And then, as you'd know, HR issues creep in by the time I left there 4 years later. And even when I was at Lark, I think we had around 30, probably 25 FTE, but well over 30 with the casuals. And it was just difficult. And I think that was when I vowed to go small again and just not have big teams to have to manage or worry about.
And you can do a lot now in terms of like the software. I look at it's my 16th year in business now, and the software that's available now to help everything. You can do things in such a fraction of the time if you tap into the right project management and task software and systems and automate things. It's just incredible.
I agree. And that 4 FTE now, that includes yourself?
Yeah.
And the other 3, I assume, are remote?
No, I'm actually a bit old school in that I like people here with me. I have tried VAs and things before, but I find I'm a communicator of on the fly. I like to go, hey, I've had this idea. Everybody come in and kind of draw it up on the board and do that. And so I really like people to be with me. So we have people in the office. I'm still a bit old school like that.
Yeah, great. Interesting. Earlier this year, I interviewed 2 kind of hidden gems here in Hobart, Tasmania, 2 tech companies. James Cooter from Savvy Interactive here in North Hobart, just around the corner from where I live. They built the Procreate app on iPad, doing about $30 million a year. And his policy is, no, I want all my team in the one building. So he's actually moved one of his best developers is Russian, moved him and his wife and kids out from Russia just
Amazing.
to be in the office. And then another James, a good friend of mine, James McGregor from Biteable, they've got about 7 or 8 million customers now, and they do online video for businesses, etc. And his policy is, no, fuck it, we don't care where they live, just want the best talent. So very, very opposing approaches by both Jameses, and obviously horses for courses. It's working for both of them.
I mean, that's the thing with business. There's so many different options, and the way that's going to work best for you is the way that works best for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Just want to flip back to the franchise. Just interested to know how, on exit, how do they value a franchise network like that? Is it, a top line valuation, or is it EBITDA profit?
No, all EBIT. So usually, like generally in Australia, it's 2 times profit multiple. Franchises get a little bit more. I ended up getting 4.7 for ours, so I was really happy with that. One of my mentors that was on my board, when he sold his franchise, they got 17 times profit multiple, which is the best I've ever heard of.
Jeez, yeah.
But yeah, generally the valuation is around 3 to 5.
Yeah. Okay, great. And you said EBIT, which is earnings before interest and tax, not EBITDA, which is earnings before interest, tax, depreciation, and amortization. So
yes,
right, that's interesting. Okay, that's quite common.
Yeah.
EBIT.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. Which I did when they started talking about that, have to look up what that was.
Yeah, that acronym. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, because the people that bought my company it's just never the language that we spoke in.
Yeah.
So the people that bought my company were talking EBIT, talking EBITDA, talking all these things that I see there going,
writing them down.
What are you talking about? And then when they told me like the whole formula, and that's, there's probably 90% of people listening to this with a small business that are like, what the fuck? Don't worry about it. Yeah. It's just fancy accountant speak. When they told me, I'm like, why not just say that? Like, just take out your expenses.
Yeah, the multiplier they value your business on is basically the net profit down the bottom, the last thing you see in your P&L, but you just add back in interest and tax.
Exactly.
And then that's the figure that they multiply 3, 4, or 5 times and pay you out on.
Yeah. Thanks, Troy.
So I'm a bit of a finance nerd.
Well,
let's move on to the rest of the questions then. When was the moment you felt like you'd succeeded?
You know what? My open day.
Really?
Yeah.
For the courses?
No, for my first business. It was one of my proudest days ever. And then for me, the opening of our first ever franchise was like, I still remember walking down the street after, like a couple of hours after the open day had finished, and one of the kids was walking along with one of our branded bags along the street with this big smile, talking to his mum and doing that. And I sat there like a weirdo stalker person, staring at them with this big smile on my face, just going, like it was just all my dreams come true.
Right. Yeah.
It was, I think for me that was, I just loved it. I loved what we did. We educated thousands and thousands of kids every week, and I always felt really good about what we did. And I don't get me wrong, have desires to be a very wealthy woman, but that for me was like my moment of it's worth it.
Right. And what does success look like to you?
It changes as I get older. Yeah, it changes. I mean, I was chasing, when I was in my 20s, bigger was what success looked like to me. My goal was to have 100 franchises, international, flying everywhere, like, woman about town kind of thing was in my mind what success looked like. Now it's very different. We went away to Coffs Harbour last weekend and my kids surfed and I sat on the veranda with my laptop, and that I can make thousands of dollars a day while doing that.
Yes. That's success.
God, that's success for me.
Right.
Yeah.
No one thing you'd recommend to marketing a fast growing business?
Show yourself. I think in this day and age, it's probably the biggest change that I've seen in the last kind of 5 to 10 years is successful businesses, especially the type of business I'm in now, used to all be about, your product and how good that experience actually was and the quality of the information and all of that sort of thing. The both good part and downside of what we do now is those who market well win.
Yes.
And so you could have the best products ever. If you don't put yourself out there and show up for your audience,
Yep.
it's not going to reach its potential.
Totally agree. Do you know the VHS versus Betamax story?
No.
So the videotape, the millennials listening won't know what that is. You can Google it. Videotapes, we used to have to go to the video store to take out and watch movies. Now that we've got Netflix, we don't need to do that. Beta was the Sony technology, and it was far superior to VHS format, which is the one that won at the end of the day. And that's because Sony kept the beta very closed, didn't make it kind of open to other manufacturers, etc., and didn't really market it well. And VHS, was slightly less. That's not the right way to put it. Was not as good. I'm sorry. VHS
inferior. Was it inferior?
I was going to say inferior, but it was good. Obviously, VHS was good, but not quite as good as the Betamax format. And Betamax died off, as those that can remember videotapes. VHS was everywhere, and so I totally agree. If you, a lot of people do think you've got to have the best product, but it's actually, I think, the best marketing for a good or great product.
Yeah. 100%.
And how did you fund your business? The current business you've got, I'm assuming was funded from the success of the franchising business.
Well, I mean, this is the thing, talking about funding. An online business to start is like
cash positive
$1,000 if you do it in the expensive way, kind of thing. If you don't DIY it, if you actually get an agency, like our agency side builds Kajabi sites, like online course websites for people, and it costs $3,000. Like it's really cheap to get started. When I started, I mean, I still remember my first location because obviously I was very young, and that was all of the money that I had. And I remember like I had $80,000 and they did the gyprocking inside of the building, and that was 8.5. And I'm going, oh my God, this money's going to go straight away. And then to get accounts with people, because I had a retail section as well. Yep. And no one would give me accounts because I'm like this bright-eyed, bushy-tailed little girl. And then, going into franchising and just setting up the franchise contracts was $60,000. Yep. Like it's the amount of outlay was insane. And so we took different funding options at different stages. So I had, at one stage, which don't ever do this, people listening, don't ever do it. I didn't have enough money to pay the staff and vowed never will I ever be late in paying staff. So I went and got a credit card, which in those days you could just walk into a bank and they give you a credit card straight away. Ran it through my own FPOS machine to give me enough cash to pay the staff, and then we're paying like 25% interest on that. Yeah. I had ATO debts so that, and people put a lot of rubbish on our government, but bless the ATO. They gave me beautiful payment plans for a couple of years to be able to do that when I first started, which I wouldn't have been able to have the cash flow to do it otherwise. So again, not recommended, but did that. And then when it came time to actually elevating the franchise, we looked for funding. So I got to the first 5, and then we needed to bring a new website. And again, back in those days, back in my day, it's just amazing how quickly things change, right? So they didn't have all the software to build like booking systems for our centres and all that sort of thing. So to build proprietary software was going to cost about another $50,000, which I didn't have. So we were looking for funding, and the best offer I got was $250,000 for half of the company.
Wow.
But I mean, from a P&L point of view, it was fair because we weren't making any profit. Yeah. So they were really paying for it. But I'm going, no, I know what this is going to be in a few years. There is no way. And we got multiple 7 figures for it like 3 years later. So I'm really glad I didn't do that. But the option I took instead was to move our family out of the family home so that we didn't have a mortgage, rent a little dingy, horrible granny flat, rent our house out, and pour all of the money back into the business so that we could do that. So
right, very smart.
It was great personal sacrifice. And I hear people all the time sprouting things like money doesn't buy happiness. And let me tell you, I've been very poor and I've been very wealthy, and I will take the money any day.
And what about, so you never took investment on any other bank finance?
I had a loan from my parents at the start, so they lent me $50,000. So I had to pay them back with 8% interest because interest rates were higher then.
Yeah.
So that took a few years. The bank would never lend us any money.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
and what about any government grants?
no.
No. All right. So if you were to start up today with plenty of funding, would you go into that industry that you franchised or franchising, I guess? I think I know the answer to that.
Well, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. I mean, I didn't love franchising from the emotional standpoint of it. My skin's not thick enough to withstand that sort of an industry. And I know there's easier and more profitable ways to do business, but at the end of the day, we need service-based businesses. So, to be able to provide that service, we helped kids that had trouble reading and, that had a lot of learning problems. And I loved what we did. And I gave the opportunity to a lot of women to be able to make their own money and start their own business and do all of that. So, yeah, I'd probably do it again, but
very differently.
Yeah.
Great. And can you outline the most stressful point in your small business growth journey so far so our audience can learn from it?
Yeah, probably when we moved out of our house.
Yep.
I think.
It's a bold move.
Yeah, it was a really hard decision. So the way it kind of came about was we were having all these conversations about funding, and I'd become very close with my accountant trying to work out what to do. And, she called me one day and said, Tina, we've just reviewed everything. You've got about 3 weeks left and then cash flow is just going to dry up. So you've either got to go sell another franchise right now, of which I had a couple of people, but no perfect candidates. And I knew it was going to bite me in the ass if I did it, or take the funding, or you just going to have no money left. And so that for me was and that was in 2012. So we'd already been franchising for a year. We had 8 locations at that time. It looked on the outside like everything was growing really well and thriving, but it was just so expensive. And we were burning money. It was just going out of town, and I hadn't quite got a handle on it yet. I didn't know what I was doing. And so I had to go home and tell my husband that this is what I want him to do. And at the time, we were young, and he had his friends telling him, oh my God, are you serious? Tell your wife, rein this shit in. This is getting out of control. He was working full time and overtime, and I was literally taking all the money here and putting it straight into the business. And so that was probably the hardest thing. And when we moved out of the house, I remember going back to the house and just sitting on the back steps. And for me, that was, I loved that house. And I just cried and cried like someone had died. I felt like such a failure. And in the end, 3 years later, it was totally worth it. But when you're making big calls like that, you don't know. You don't know whether it's going to be worth it, whether it's going to work out, or whether it was going to be the biggest mistake of my life. I didn't know at the time. So that was probably the hardest part, and then working my way out of that. So being really systematic and being so tight on budget. We had, after the cost of rent, we lived on $200 a week for nearly 18 months. And we had a 2-year-old and a 3-year-old at the time. It was just, we ate shit food. And I mean, now still, I go buy a coffee out and I still feel good. I still go, I'm still so proud I can buy a freaking $4 cappuccino.
That's great. And your husband and kids were all okay with the decision and that time?
I wouldn't say okay. But my husband's always been supportive of me, which, he's always had belief that I could do the things that I wanted to do, which I am incredibly thankful for. And a couple of years after that, when we turned really quickly, we took that 18 months and we were so disciplined with everything. And then 18 months later, he actually quit his job to be a stay-at-home dad so that I could really devote to growing the business, because it was so hard for him working 60, 70 hour weeks, me working, having the 2 toddlers. And it was just, oh God, talk about a hard stage of life. But it was very stressful. But then on the other end, and then the kids started school, he would surf during the day, and those same friends would look at him and go, man, you've got the best life.
You did the right thing then, listening to your wife. That's what you're thinking.
Let that be a lesson to you, gentlemen.
That's right. Well done, Tina. And it sounds like a very supportive husband.
Yeah.
And what area in business do you feel you've had to work on the most to add the greatest value?
Probably my mindset. more than anything. I'm very big into learning. Obviously, I'm from education. I have a private business coach. I'm part of mastermind programs. I take a lot of courses. I do, the technical aspects of business. Of course, we always have to learn them. But I think the hardest part has been business is a mind game. And to let go of a whole lot of stuff that we learned in childhood and step into it. I know for me, like I was in the franchise industry where the average franchisor is like a 50, 60-year-old white dude who's super serious, really autocratic. And I'd go to these franchise conventions and bounce on in there, just kind of going, hi guys, so what are you doing? And just, my feelings of imposter syndrome and really embracing, I was always trying to be someone I wasn't because I thought that's who I needed to be. And it took me a long time to really get comfortable in my own skin and just go, look, this is what I'm good at. This is what I'm not. This is what I need to do. But yeah, even now, I mean, I've got my own podcast, Her Empire Builder, and did an episode last week that was one of my most popular episodes, all about, constantly showing up and going, it's really hard to show up, and the way that you have to do it on social media now that has really good results, you feel like a show off and you feel like you're a wanker and you're just rubbing it in people's faces and it's just icky.
Yeah.
But it's highly effective.
Yep.
And so that is something that I've really had to work on recently and going, you know what, I have had great success and it's okay to talk about that.
Yeah, great. We'll skip to that next question of what's been the biggest mindset shift. Anything else to add on that?
I think, it's self-belief, but it's also doing it your way as well. Like I have a whole lot of people that say to me, how do you do it with kids? My kids now are 11 and 12, and I don't cook and I don't clean. So that gives me back, I reckon, 15, 20 hours a week that a lot of other women typically don't have. And women will say to me, oh my God, you're so lucky. I wish I could do that. And the thing is, you can.
Yeah.
And this has been probably one of the biggest mindset shifts for me in the last few years is if I don't want to do something, you don't have to. You can just
find a way to make it. Yeah.
You could get an au pair. You could get meal delivery. You can hire a cleaner. Like there's so many other ways that you can do things. And I used to feel really guilty for that. I know when I got a cleaner, I hate spending time. Like everyone listening, you may think I'm pathetic for this, and I don't care. Like I got a cleaner to put clothes away to do my washing, put my clothes away, because I really was like, why am I spending an hour doing this? It's ridiculous. And I felt awful when I was showing this person around and going, this is where my clothes go and this is where, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I've got to be like the worst woman in the world to be getting someone to do this. But the thing is, I would rather spend an hour doing this.
Yes, exactly. Absolutely. Yeah, great. What have you enjoyed least about managing the fast growth?
Feeling like you don't know what to do. Feeling like I don't know what to do. Yeah. I mean, I used to always think before I went through it myself that bigger was better and that growing meant more profits and everything was going to be easier. But every time you up level, there's just a new set of problems there to master. And that's part of the fun and that's part of the journey. And I love it. But that's been the most difficult part, I think, is getting there and then managing the growth. It's right where we're at the moment, where we've grown far quicker than what I ever anticipated, and making those decisions and going, do we put more staff on? Do we not? Do we turn customers away? Do we raise our prices? What sort of infrastructure do we need to support this? What can we systemize? Like all of those things is the hardest part about growth for sure.
Yeah. And what do you love most about growing a small business?
Or how many people we get to impact and serve and help. And I love the momentum and the energy. I just love everything about it. Business is fun.
It is good because it's also the other side of the coin, or the double-edged sword, which we'll talk about. A new question I added recently, which is about balance, which I know you'll be great to talk about.
Yeah.
What is the number one habit you think a small business owner needs to develop and maintain?
Discipline.
Yep.
Unfortunately.
That's good.
Yeah. Around time and knowing when to call it.
Yep.
And because, like, as business owners, we're the successful ones, they love what we do. So usually, like, I remember I saw a psychologist a few years back because I was burning out, and he asked me, what do I do other than work? Like, what are my hobbies?
That's one of my questions. Yep.
And I'm like, well, I hang out with my kids, and, I've got a couple of really close girlfriends, and we'll go out occasionally and that's it. He's like, well, what about things that you do for fun? I'm like, business is my fun. He's like, no, something else. I'm like, well, I don't want to do anything else. And it took me a really long time to figure that the brain does need a break.
It does. Yeah, there's a lot of studies which I've written about in the course, one of the courses. So what is your hobby?
I do lots of different things now. I paint very badly. I'm learning piano. I play netball. I go to African dance class.
Right. Wow.
So I still find I need organized activity to be able to do it. Even when I meditate most days. I can't just sit. I need the auditory meditation to the guided meditation because I do have a bit of an ADHD brain.
Yep. Fair enough. It's, everyone's wired differently and you find those things that work for you. That's great.
Yeah.
Be the change you want to see in your business. Become more productive and less stressed with our free Transform Your Performance online course. Once you see the benefits, put your entire team through the course at no cost. We start out by telling you the secret to guaranteed success, then over 100 lessons help you be more focused, present, productive, and feel more in control about work. growasmallbusiness.com.
Can you talk to how you added people to the team over the years? Some wins, mistakes, and advice for those listening?
Yeah. My gosh, we'll take an hour to go over this part. I hire very differently now to what I used to.
Me too.
I used to hire very specifically for skills. Now I hire very specifically for personality because I know both. I want to work around people that are really enthusiastic about what they do. And you could be the best person at website development. If I need a website developer and you're boring as batshit, not going to happen.
Don't want to know you.
No, because it brings the energy of the team down.
Does, the momentum too.
Yeah. And I also know myself a lot better now. So there's some people that I work so well with from a personality point of view, but other people that I don't. So there's a book called Radical Candor, which is great. And that's kind of my communication style is I don't like to let things fester or the unknown of going, oh my gosh, is she mad at me today? Or is something going on? If something's not right, like for a graphic designer, for example, like I am so over the top in praise. When something's good, I'm like, oh my God, that's the best thing I've ever seen. It's amazing. It's so good. And if it's not, like I'll walk past and go, oh, that's awful. What are you doing? And some people will take that really personally and others will be like, haha, what do I need to change? And just take it as it comes really pragmatically. And so I need to hire people that kind of are fine with that sort of style and response. Yeah.
Oh, any big mistakes in recruitment you can talk to?
Yeah.
Pick one you want to share?
Pick one. Gosh, I've had staff steal cash in retail. I've had one that ripped off my IP for our curriculum, rebranded it, sold it to somebody else, and then we had to sue them. I've had franchisees go back. We've had like 16 years and that many stuff. You have so many
you to choose from.
Go bad. What would be the most relevant for people, the most common? The most common, actually, this is something that's come up a lot with friends of mine that are in business lately. The most common that we're finding now is getting skilled people that then take everything that you've learnt and then go and start their own business on the side.
Yes.
It's happening so much at the moment because small business is so accessible. But then that's not a good example because now that I've said that, I've realized there's no real solution to that.
Yeah, it's tough.
But that's probably when I talk to friends in business about staffing at the moment, especially when it comes to graphic designers, it's happening to nearly every person I know.
Yeah, I think there's a big structural shift happening, especially after COVID, people wanting to go out and work for themselves more and more now. So I think that's just that risk is going to only increase.
Yeah. I think, and sometimes it takes a while for people to realize that they're actually great technical people, but they might not want to market themselves as business owners too, because entrepreneurship's so glorified at the moment and it looks so appealing to people and people think it's really easy and a piece of cake, but there's so much that goes on behind the scenes to get that going. Yeah,
when I give advice and before I start mentoring, I smash that I smash that preconceived notion and say small business is a lot fucking harder than what you think it is.
Yes. Yeah. And it takes time and consistency and persistence and all those things. I mean, I think like there's no better I wouldn't live life any other way. But you've got to be up for the challenge.
That's it, right. Yeah, that's right. What are some of the things you'd recommend in building a sustainable and kick-ass culture to help with the growth?
Communication, I think, and being upfront, hiring really carefully. It comes back to that. It only takes one bad egg to kind of create any sort of toxicity, and that's really hard to get rid of, and it permeates throughout the whole team really quickly. And then you get, especially once you get, that's why I want to keep under 6, especially once you get past that, and then you can have those little silos of the like talking about other people in the team behind their back and the bitchiness that goes on, and it can be hard. So I like open, like as I said, there's a book called Radical Candor that's one of my favorites for that. And having transparency. One of the ways I've always run my business is everyone sees the numbers and how we're going, which horrifies some people.
I think it's great.
But I'm very open with my team every week when we have our meetings and going, this is how we performed. This is what went well. This is what didn't. This is what the expenses were. This is how we went in marketing. This is how we went in all those different areas. And I think it gives some ownership to that as well.
And out of interest, do you have any kind of bonus for your team if you guys hit certain targets?
Not officially.
No.
So we don't have official things, but I'm very generous in my rewards for when we kick ass.
Right. Good.
Which is harder now that we're not traveling.
Yeah, I know.
Because it used to be like, I'm going to America on a conference. You want to come?
Yeah. Great.
Yeah. But now, we're stuck.
Well, just out of this next question, tell our audience how you've handled balance.
Yeah. Poorly.
With time comes wisdom, though.
Yeah. So probably towards the end of my franchise journey, so back in 2016, I had adrenal fatigue. So I was diagnosed with adrenal fatigue. I did not, when the business escalated to a certain level, the way I tried to problem solve that was just by working more. So I was working 12 or 13 hours a day, every single day. And just the adrenaline constantly coming through there. So my body kind of stopped the ability to make cortisol, and I was drinking a lot too. So every night I'd come home and I'd drink. And so very unhealthy in that sort of stage. And it took a good 6 months to kind of actively get out of that. And I would say if you're heading in that direction, get help. So I see a psychologist. I still see a psychologist every month. I was going every week then to try and really get over all those blocks in that I can't stop because the world will end if I stop, like how self-important, the ego. But I believed it. I'm like, everyone needs me to go on. And then I had a wellness coach as well that helped me with nutrition and to stop drinking and to, do all of that sort of thing. So now I have to be really conscious, but my habit is to work. I'm a workaholic. Yes. I love it. And so I have to very consciously pull that back in, and then the discipline slips a little bit, and I find going there and I've got to rein it back in again. So it's just a constant, it's a constant thing and a constant choice to be active. Like after I sold my franchise and we went on holidays together, we had that gap year. For the first couple of months, my kids they treated me differently. A lot of the time, I remember we walked down the streets and we were walking down the street of Japan, and my husband and my 2 sons were walking, and I was just walking kind of a couple steps behind them, and they were their own little unit, and I was this outsider.
Wow.
And it was horrifying to me. And that was it's weird how like those little moments are such significant shift moments. And I said I'd never do that again. And so now, I go and I take the kids to surfing and tennis and mountain biking. And, rather than us having that sort of relationship, we both now work part-time and both parent together kind of thing. And it's just so much better. And if I didn't have those appointments, I would just work. So I have to put them in the diary.
I'm the same. I've got structures in place, like my chocolate Labrador Carlton supporter. We go bushwalking every day, and school drop off and pick up with my daughter my weeks that I have her, and sport and catching up with mates. It's so important. And I have to make sure I say yes to, I've got like my best friend who lives quite close to us, and often I get invited to other social things and I'm like, no, I'm good. And I have to consciously go like twice a month.
not in COVID times, but twice a month normally. Like I go out. I go out and do something social. It's not going to have anything to do with business.
Yep.
It's not going to have anything to do with anything other than just relax and have a good time.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
How much professional development did you invest in yourself over the years in business?
Oh, so much. I should add that up. Always. So I've had a private business coach since I started. So usually I change them up every year or two.
Yep.
And that costs me around $20,000 to $30,000 a year for that. I was part of Business Blueprint, which I think is one of Australia's best business education programs. That is, I think, $1,500-$1,600 a month. I was part of that for 3 years. I've been part of her business network, all a lot.
Right.
Is the answer to that. I would say at the moment, so this year, I'm part of a mastermind, a private business coaching program, and quite a few other courses. I'd say I'd reach $100,000 this year in
spend,
personal development.
Investment. Yeah, that's great. How often do you meet with your business coach?
Every fortnight.
Yep.
Yeah, I find weekly is a bit too quick.
Yeah.
Monthly is too far away. Fortnightly, I love. Yeah. It's what I do with my private coaching clients too, and I love it.
And you keep it around about an hour for when you do that?
Yeah, sometimes it goes over.
Yep.
Sometimes I'm not actually tied to, I know I have some clients that are like start on the minute, finish on the minute.
Yeah.
But for me, I kind of, I've always got my things that I want to get over. And sometimes it can be like a 30-minute power session and you're just like, okay, I'm good. I've got clarity. I've got direction. I'm ready to rock.
Yeah, great. Good.
Yeah.
Talk about any mentors or coaches you've had?
Loads. Australian or overseas?
Any, like the best ones that you've had?
Best ones. One of my best decisions was I put a board together, an unofficial board for my franchise company. And I literally rang every person that I knew that had been successful in franchising and asked them to come on the board.
Great
and
idea.
I paid each one of them $1,000 a month. So it was a huge investment. We had 4 of them. But it was game changing. The head of that was Michael Sherlock, who built and sold Brumby's bakeries for like $57 million. And so that was incredible to...
What knowledge to have on the board.
Yeah. So I've always kind of approached people that aren't necessarily business coaches, but people that are where I want to be and ask them to coach me. So at the moment, I work with a guy called Clint Salter, who isn't a business coach, but he runs a really amazing multi-million-dollar online membership program. And so I was just like, you've got to help me do this. You're where I want to be next. To do that, Dale Beaumont's one of my favorites, who has Business Blueprint. Susie Daphne's has her business. There's so many. That's
great. Well, that was the next question. Do you have a board of directors, which you've answered back for the franchise business? So in that time, did you have a chair on that board? Someone chaired it?
No, so it wasn't, that was pretty much me. So it wasn't, we didn't have to have a board from regulations kind of thing. It was just a put together one that I wanted, more of an advisory board.
Yep, great.
Yeah.
And you're one of the few ones I've had on here that has exited a business both operationally and financially. We've spoken a bit about that today, but any other final advice or thoughts you might want to give the audience on your exit?
I think setting up to sell was good. So I had in the back of my mind, because we'd been approached for the couple of years prior, we always ran that business with the intention of exiting. We exited way sooner than what I ever planned, but it was always built to sell. And so I think it's important to know, like my business that I'm building at the moment is never saleable. It's just not. It's built on my personal brand and it's never saleable, but it means I can run it. The back end of it, the books, the way we market, everything's done differently because it's not built to sell. So I think it's really good to know, if you ever want to exit your business, set it up in that way. Tell your accountant, because they're going to do things very differently.
Totally agree.
If you're building to sell, and systemizing and that sort of thing as well. Part of my earnout was because they were fearful of me exiting the business, so I had to stick around. In hindsight, if I had more time, I would have withdrawn me from the business way earlier and put an interim CEO in place.
That's before the sale, you were saying?
Yeah, because otherwise I wouldn't have had to stay for that 2 years.
Yeah, of course. That's good advice. I was going to say 2 years does sound longer than usual. Often they ask you for 1 year.
Yeah, it's a long time. I've got a couple of friends that have done 3.
Wow.
It's a really long time, especially for people that are self-employed and then have to technically be employees.
Yeah.
It's not fun.
That would be hard. I couldn't do it. I could not do that.
I would say if you're ever doing an earnout, to read the contract as if the worst case scenario was going to happen. because often, the nature of entrepreneurs is we're optimists.
Yes, we are.
And always think the best is going to happen, but rarely in an exit does it.
And have a good solicitor or lawyer, which will show you that really dark or negative side, the worst case.
Yeah. And then you can make the best decisions from that point of view. But I'd also, hold out for the right deal. We had 3 different offers. I didn't take the highest offer. I took the one that I thought was going to be the most sustainable, because I think it'd be different if I just had like a retail store or something like that. I would have just taken the highest one, but I had franchisees, which I felt very responsible for their financial well-being going forward.
Yep. Okay, we're on to our final 5 questions. What do you think is the hardest thing in growing a small business?
What do I think is the hardest thing? Believing in yourself.
Yep. Great. And favorite business book which has helped you the most?
4-Hour Work Week.
Tim Ferriss, that is a great book. I got a lot out of that too. And any great podcasts or online learning tools you use for your own professional development?
Hundreds. It depends what you're looking for. My podcast, Her Empire Builder, is great for online courses. It depends what you're looking for. One of my favorites is Brendan Burchard. He's my favorite kind of all-rounder personal development guy.
Yeah, Brendan is good. One tool you'd recommend to help grow a small business?
Monday.com for project and task management.
Yeah, I was going to ask you what you use. It's on my list to check out Monday.com and a couple of other ones, so I'll definitely check it out.
I use a combination of that for project and task management. We have a Google site for all of our systems.
Right.
Spending the time getting that right
makes
everything easier.
I agree, totally. And finally, my favourite question. What would you tell yourself on day 1 of starting out?
You're going to be okay.
Sage advice. Thank you very much for your time, Tina.
Thanks,
today.
Troy.
It's been wonderful.
Pleasure.
We could have chatted for another 2 hours, I'm sure.
Yeah, totally.
I think the audience will get a shit ton of value out of your journey and what you share with us. And congratulations on your success and
Thank you.
Managing through the ups and downs.
Plenty of them. Thanks.
Thanks, Tina.
And for our audience, we'd greatly appreciate a review in iTunes or whatever platform you listen to us on. More reviews means we bubble up higher in iTunes, etc. So more business owners looking for podcasts to help with their growth will find us.